Hola, vamos a comenzar la videoclase relativa a los microcréditos, en la que vamos a analizar su concepto, la labor de Muhammad Yunus y el Grameen Bank. Vamos a analizar el método grupal y el método individual y la adaptación de los microcréditos a Estados Unidos, Europa Occidental y, en particular, el caso en España. Para analizar el concepto de microcrédito vamos a atender a su definición, que fue adoptada en la Cumbre del Microcrédito, realizada en febrero de 1997. Por ella, entendemos que a través de los programas de microcréditos se extienden pequeños préstamos a personas pobres para que realicen proyectos de autoempleo que generen ingresos, y esto le permite cuidar de sí mismos y de sus familias. Para desarrollar el concepto de microcrédito vamos a atender a una clasificación que realizan diferentes autores, proponiendo 5 máximas negativas que definen claramente aquellos tópicos en los que no debemos caer a la hora de hablar de microcréditos. En primer lugar, tenemos que considerar que los microcréditos no es caridad. Se trata de una herramienta para facilitar el acceso a la financiación a aquellas personas que lo necesiten para levantar un negocio. Por tanto, estamos hablando de un préstamo en sí, que tiene sus intereses de mercado y debe ser devuelto mensualmente, de manera que el dinero entregado pueda ser devuelto a otros emprendedores. Es una modalidad de préstamo como otra cualquiera. Por tanto, consideramos que el microcrédito no es dinero entregado a fondo perdido. El microcrédito no estamos hablando de una subvención. El importe concedido más los intereses debe ser devuelto por el prestatario. Y tampoco estamos hablando de que solo se debe entregar el préstamo de pequeño importe. Para que el microcrédito cumpla su vertiente social hacia los más desfavorecidos, es necesario que la entidad que lo entrega realice un seguimiento continuo, apoyando en todo momento el negocio que se está financiando para que éste dure lo máximo posible. Otra de las confusiones que debemos evitar es que el microcrédito no es un crédito para el consumo. Lo que se intenta de fomentar es el autoempleo. El objetivo que se persigue es el de que se emprendan pequeños negocios o actividades productivas autosostenibles, para que se permita al prestatario ganarse la vida. Y tampoco debemos considerar que el microcrédito es un préstamo únicamente para emprendedores. Se trata de financiar a aquellas personas que lo necesiten, personas que estén en riesgo de exclusión y que no tienen acceso al sistema financiero tradicional. Para analizar el fenómeno de los microcréditos es indispensable acudir a estudiar la figura de Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus nació en Bangladesh en 1940 y es considerado como el padre de los microcréditos, el creador de los microcréditos. Se formó en económicas entre Nueva Delhi y Estados Unidos y en 1976 creó el Grameen Bank, considerado y conocido como el Banco de los Pobres. En 2006, Yunus y el Banco Grameen fueron condecorados con el Premio Nobel de la Paz por sus esfuerzos para incentivar el desarrollo social y económico desde abajo. Para acudir al origen de los microcréditos debemos estudiar la llegada de Muhammad Yunus a Bangladesh cuando finalizó sus estudios. Él volvió a su aldea de Yobra y encontró que la mayoría de los campesinos que trabajaban en la aldea lo hacían en condiciones prácticamente de esclavitud. Y se dio cuenta de que si a estos campesinos se les proporcionaba una pequeña ayuda económica, podrían realizar el mismo trabajo, pero para ellos, autoempleo. Al interesarse por cuántas personas había en la aldea de Yobra en una situación semejante, constató que era 42 y que con un préstamo de unos $27 se les permitiría acceder a estos productos que necesitaban para desarrollar su trabajo y quedarse ellos con los beneficios. Este fue el inicio del proyecto que más tarde daría como fruto el Grameen Bank, que en 1983 se convirtió en un banco formal. Los propietarios del banco son los propios clientes, los receptores de los préstamos, personas pobres en exclusión social y financiera y con escasos recursos económicos. En 1995 el Grameen Bank decidió no recibir más donaciones y no prevé que en el futuro vaya a tener la necesidad de aceptar donaciones ni de pedir préstamos a fuentes locales o externas. El 100% de los préstamos del Grameen Bank son financiados con depósitos propios y más de la mitad de los mismos provienen de los propios prestatarios. El número total de prestatarios es de 5,9 millones y el 96% de los mismos son mujeres. El hecho de apoyar el trabajo para las mujeres es uno de los pilares fundamentales del Grameen Bank. Los datos del banco revelan que el 98% de los créditos son devueltos satisfactoriamente. Analizando los tipos de interés que existen dentro de los préstamos del Grameen Bank, tenemos que el 20%, que trabajan con el 20% para los préstamos que generan ingresos, el 8% para los préstamos de vivienda, 5% para los créditos de estudios y el 0% para los mendigos e indigentes. La metodología del trabajo del Grameen Bank recibe el nombre de BULAC. Se trata de una modalidad de crédito grupal en la que cada prestatario pertenece a un grupo de cinco integrantes. En principio, el banco no requiere ningún tipo de garantía, puesto que lo que se pretende es hacer posible y acercar el autoempleo a familias que no tienen acceso al crédito. De esta manera, al estar agrupados, la presión del prestamista sobre el microcrediticio es menor. Sin embargo, no se da ni se exige ningún tipo de responsabilidad colectiva. Cada integrante del grupo responde por su parte del crédito. Se realizan reuniones semanales, donde el grupo y el centro supervisan que cada uno se comporte de forma responsable. Desde la aparición del Grameen Bank, las microfinanzas son vistas como una herramienta muy eficaz en la lucha contra la pobreza. Es importante tener en consideración que, paralelamente al desarrollo de los microcréditos en el Banco de los Pobres, la idea de los microcréditos también tuvo mucho éxito en otros países de América Latina, África y Asia. Sin embargo, el método grupal no fue el utilizado exclusivamente a lo largo de esta expansión, puesto que recibía muchas críticas, principalmente basadas en la tensión que recibían los prestamistas por parte de los individuos del grupo. Es por esto que algunos bancos microprestamistas, como por ejemplo Banco Sol en Bolivia, han basado su estrategia en el método individual. Así pues, con el método individual, a través de la supresión del elemento grupal, se traspasa la presión de grupo a la presión del banco, siendo cada individuo responsable de su propio crédito. Sin embargo, las reuniones semanales se siguen realizando, pero el propósito de ellas es distinto. Ya no se realizan para revisar quién está en deuda con el banco y sus compañeros, sino que en estas reuniones se comparten experiencias de tal forma que unos pueden aprender de la situación de los otros. De esta manera se elimina la presión de grupo, pero no desaparece la presión social, es decir, las influencias que se establecen unos prestamistas sobre otros. En este caso no estamos hablando de presión, sino de reputación, la cual resultará muy importante para el individuo si tienes que establecer relaciones financieras con los que han sido sus compañeros de grupo. Con el crecimiento y proliferación del Grameen Bank fueron llevados a cabo una serie de programas alternativos al original de los microcréditos, entre los que podemos destacar los siguientes. Los programas para indigentes. Con ellos, el Grameen Bank dispuso de un programa especial denominado Programa de Miembros en Lucha, Struggling Members Program, para llegar a los indigentes. Además, el Grameen Bank ofrece programas de préstamos de importe mayor, conocidos como créditos para microempresas, en los que no existe restricción ni en cuanto al volumen del préstamo ni en cuanto a la utilización del mismo. A diferencia del microcrédito convencional, los clientes deben mostrar responsabilidad y confianza, que es demostrable a través de los microcréditos anteriores. Por otro lado, el Grameen Bank también incluye préstamos para viviendas, presta un capital inicial para la compra de una vivienda. También se desarrollan programas educativos, en los que cada año se ofrecen becas para los hijos de los miembros del Grameen Bank, siempre con prioridad para las hijas, para animarles a obtener mejores calificaciones académicas. Y por último, los programas FON, mediante los cuales se conceden préstamos para crear operadoras, mayoritariamente también mujeres, las cuales compran teléfonos móviles y de esta manera pueden ofrecer servicios de telecomunicaciones en casi la mitad de las aldeas de Bangladesh, donde este servicio no había existido nunca. A continuación pasaremos a comentar la implantación del microcrédito en los países de Europa Occidental y Estados Unidos, la cual se enmarca en un contexto de circunstancias económicas y sociales completamente diferentes a las de sus países originarios. Es preciso recordar que el fin principal que se persigue con los microcréditos es el de facilitar el crédito a personas pobres, para que de esta manera se puedan autoemplear y ayuden a mejorar su situación familiar. En este sentido, en Europa y en Estados Unidos, la pobreza es entendida y vivida de una forma muy distinta a los países en vías de desarrollo. Por tanto, los objetivos de los programas microcrediticios en estos países se van a ver modificados. A rasgos generales, la adaptación del microcrédito al mundo occidental pretende preservar la naturaleza del sistema, siguiendo métodos como por ejemplo el de Yunus. Pero como comentamos, el perfil de cliente potencial cambia. En los países en vías de desarrollo se trata de personas que no tienen ningún recurso y tienen dificultades para sobrevivir, mientras que en los países occidentales los posibles prestatarios son personas que no tienen la capacidad económica suficiente para entrar al sistema bancario tradicional, pero que sí disponen de una cierta estabilidad. Es a finales de los años 80 cuando el enfoque del Grameen Bank llega a Europa y lo hace a Francia, en el marco de la asociación ADIE, Asociación para el Derecho de la Iniciativa Económica. Una gran diferencia entre los programas microcrediticios de los países en vía de desarrollo con los occidentales es la asistencia y que tienen una mayor importancia las entidades destinadas al seguimiento de los proyectos que se financian. En los países en vía de desarrollo se financian proyectos de fácil realización, para los cuales no se requieren demasiados conocimientos de gestión por parte del prestatario. Sin embargo, en Occidente, levantar un negocio requiere el conocimiento en el plano legal, conocimientos de factores económicos y de gestión, y por lo tanto, estas empresas de asesoramiento y seguimiento son muy necesarias para asegurar que los negocios funcionen. En cuanto al caso particular de España, fueron las cajas de ahorro, que desde su fundación cuentan con un fuerte componente social, las entidades que con mayor decisión apostaron por este tipo de instrumentos financieros, poniendo en marcha diferentes sistemas de microcréditos. Estos sistemas evolucionaron de una forma muy dispersa y poco sistemática en nuestro país, de manera que cada entidad lo gestionaba de una manera diferente. Sin embargo, con la crisis económica sufrida en estos últimos años, la mayoría de cajas de ahorro del país o desaparecieron o se fusionaron, de manera que los proyectos relacionados con los microcréditos en España actualmente están adscritos a las fundaciones, entidades bancarias tradicionales o a los programas avalados por la Unión Europea. En este último caso, en los programas avalados por la Unión Europea, debemos puntualizar que la Unión Europea no concede directamente los préstamos, sino que negocia en cada país con algunas entidades para que hagan las veces de proveedores de este instrumento de acceso al crédito. Otra opción con la que contamos, más reciente y novedosa, es solicitar el microcrédito para el proyecto a través de alguna plataforma de crowdfunding y que sea esta la que estudie y valore el proyecto. Esta modalidad de microcréditos será estudiada con mayor detenimiento en la videolección relativa al sharing economy. Por norma general, los microcréditos que se conceden actualmente en nuestro país cuentan con las siguientes características. Importe máximo, que ronda los 25.000 euros, se financia normalmente hasta el 95% del proyecto, los tipos de intereses son fijos durante toda la vida de la operación, el plazo de amortización normalmente en torno a 6 años, incluyendo a veces una carencia de hasta 6 meses, y lo que sí es necesario es presentar un plan de empresa y un informe de viabilidad del proyecto empresarial. Llegados a este punto y para completar el estudio sobre los microcréditos, vamos a visionar una charla de Jessica Yagley, que es la fundadora de Kiva.org, una de las empresas que más y mejor están trabajando actualmente en el mundo de los microcréditos.
The stories we tell about each other matter very much. The stories we tell ourselves about our own lives matter. And most of all, I think the way that we participate in each other's stories is of deep importance. I was 6 years old when I first heard stories about the poor. Now, I didn't hear those stories from the poor themselves. I heard them from my Sunday school teacher and Jesus, kind of by my Sunday school teacher. I remember learning that people who were poor needed something material, food, clothing, shelter, that they didn't have. And I also was taught, coupled with that, that it was my job, this classroom full of 5 and 6-year-old children, it was our job, apparently, to help. This is what Jesus asked of us, and in that he said, what you do for the least of these, you do for me. Now, I was pretty psyched. I was very eager to be useful in the world. I think we all have that feeling. And also, it was kind of interesting that God needed help. That was news to me, and it felt like it was a very important thing to get to participate in. But I also learned very soon thereafter that Jesus also said, and I'm paraphrasing, the poor would always be with us. This frustrated and confused me. I felt like I had been just given a homework assignment that I had to do, and I was excited to do, but no matter what I would do, I would fail. So I felt confused, a little bit frustrated and angry, like maybe I'd misunderstood something here, and I felt overwhelmed. And for the first time, I began to fear this group of people and to feel negative emotion towards a whole group of people. I imagined in my head a kind of long line of individuals that were never going away, that would always be with us. They were always going to ask me to help them and give them things, which I was excited to do, but I didn't know how it was going to work. And I didn't know what would happen when I ran out of things to give, and especially if the problem was never going away. In the years following, The other stories I heard about the poor growing up were no more positive. For example, I saw pictures and images frequently of sadness and suffering. I heard about things that were going wrong in the lives of the poor. I heard about disease. I heard about war. They always seemed to be kind of related. And in general, I got this sort of idea that the poor in the world, lived lives that were wrought with suffering and sadness, devastation, hopelessness. And after a while, I developed what I think many of us do, this predictable response, where I started to feel bad every time I heard about them. I started to feel guilty for my own relative wealth, because I wasn't doing more, apparently, to make things better. And I even felt a sense of shame because of that. And so, naturally, I started to distance myself. I stopped listening to their stories quite as closely as I had before. And I stopped expecting things to really change. Now, I still gave. On the outside, it looked like I was still quite involved. I gave of my time and my money. I gave when solutions were on sale. The cost of a cup of coffee can save a child's life, right? I mean, who can argue with that? I gave when I was cornered, when it was difficult to avoid. And I gave, in general, when the negative emotions build up enough that I gave to relieve my own suffering, not someone else's. But truth be told, I was giving out of that place, not out of a genuine place of hope and excitement to help and of generosity. It became a transaction for me, it became sort of a trade. I was purchasing something, I was buying my right to go on with my day and not necessarily be bothered by this bad news. And I think the way that we go through that sometimes can, first of all, disembody a group of people, individuals out there in the world, and it can also turn into a commodity, which is a very scary thing. So as I did this, and as I think many of us do this, we kind of buy our distance, we buy our right to go on with our day. I think that exchange can actually get in the way of the very thing that we want most. It can get in the way of our desire to really be meaningful and useful in another person's life, and in short, to love. Thankfully, a few years ago, things shifted for me because I heard this gentleman speak, Dr. Muhammad Yunus. I know many in the room probably know exactly who he is, but to give the shorthand version, for any who have not heard him speak, Dr. Yunus won the Nobel Peace Prize a few years ago for his work pioneering modern microfinance. This was, when I heard him speak, it was 3 years before that. But basically, microfinance, this is new to you as well, think of that as financial services and products for the poor. Think of all the things you get at your bank and imagine those products and services tailored to the needs of someone living on a few dollars a day. Dr. Yunus shared his story explaining what that was and what he had done with his Grameen Bank. He also talked about, in particular, micro-lending, which is a tiny loan that could help someone start or grow a business. Now, when I heard him speak, it was exciting for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I learned about this new method of change in the world that, for once, showed me maybe a way to interact with someone and to give, to share of a resource in a way that wasn't weird and didn't make me feel bad. That was exciting. But more importantly, he told stories about the poor that were different than any stories I had heard before. In fact, those individuals he talked about where poor was sort of a side note. He was talking about strong, smart, hardworking entrepreneurs who woke up every day and were doing things to make their lives and their families' lives better. All they needed to do that more quickly and to do it better was a little bit of capital. It was an amazing sort of insight for me, and I, in fact, was so deeply moved by this. It's hard to express now how much that affected me, but I was so moved that I actually quit my job a few weeks later, and I moved to East Africa to try to see for myself what this was about. For the first time, actually, in a long time, I wanted to meet those individuals. I wanted to meet these entrepreneurs and see for myself what their lives were actually about. So I spent 3 months in Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania interviewing entrepreneurs that had received $100 to start or grow a business. And in fact, through those interactions, the first time I was starting to get to be friends with some of those people in that big amorphous group out there that was supposed to be far away. I was starting to be friends and get to know their personal stories. And over again, as I interviewed them and spent my days with them, I did hear stories of life change and amazing little details of change. So I would hear from goat herders who had used that money that they had received to buy a few more goats, change, their business trajectory would change, they would make a little bit more money, the standard of living would shift and would get better, and they would make really interesting little adjustments in their lives, like they would start to send their children to school, they might be able to buy mosquito nets, maybe they could afford a lock for the door and feel secure. Maybe it was just that they could put sugar in their tea and offer that to me when I came as their guest, and that made them feel proud. But there were these beautiful details, even if I talked to 20 goat herders in a row, and some days that's what happened, but these beautiful details of life change that were meaningful to them. that was another thing that really touched me. It was very humbling to see for the first time, to really understand that even if I could have taken a magic wand and fixed everything, I probably would have gotten a lot wrong, because the best way for people to change their lives is for them to have control and to do that in the way that they believe is best for them. So I saw that, and it was very humbling. Anyway, another interesting thing happened while I was there. I never once was asked for a donation, which had kind of been my mode, right? There's poverty, you give money to help. No one asked me for a donation. In fact, no one wanted me to feel bad for them at all. If anything, they just wanted to be able to do more of what they were doing already and to build on their own capabilities. So what I did hear once in a while was that people wanted a loan. I thought that sounded very reasonable and really exciting. And by the way, I was a philosophy and poetry major in school, so I didn't know the difference between profit and revenue when I went to East Africa. I just got this impression that the money would work, and I started, my introduction to business was in these $100 little infusions of capital, and I learned about profit and revenue, about leverage, all sorts of things from farmers, from seamstresses, from goat herders. So this idea that these new stories of business and of hope might be shared with my friends and family, and through that, maybe we could get some of the money that they needed to be able to continue their businesses and as loans, that's this little idea that turned into Kiva. A few months later, I went back to Uganda with a digital camera and a basic website that my partner Matthew and I had kind of built, and took pictures of 7 of my new friends, posted their stories, these stories of entrepreneurship, up on the website, spammed friends and family and said, we think this is legal, haven't heard back yet from the SEC on all the details, but what do you say? Do you want to help participate in this, provide the money that they need? The money came in basically overnight. We sent it over to Uganda, and over the next 6 months, a beautiful thing happened. The entrepreneurs received the money, they were paid, and their businesses, in fact, grew, and they were able to support themselves and change the trajectory of their lives. In October of 2005, after those first 7 loans were repaid, Matt and I took the word beta off of the site. We said, our little experiment has been a success, let's start for real. That was our official launch. And in that first year, October 2005 through 2006, Kiva facilitated $500,000 in loans. The second year, it was a total of 15 million. The third year, the total was up to around 40. The fourth year, we were just short of 100. And today, less than 5 years in, Kiva's facilitated more than $150 million in little $25 bits from lenders and entrepreneurs, more than 1 million of those collectively in 200 countries. So that's where Kiva is today, just to bring you right up to the present. And while those numbers and those statistics are really fun to talk about and they're interesting, to me, Kiva is really about stories. It's about retelling the story of the poor, and it's about giving ourselves an opportunity to engage that validates their dignity, validates a partnership relationship, not a relationship that's based on, the traditional sort of donor-beneficiary weirdness that can happen, but instead a relationship that can promote respect and hope and this optimism that together we can move forward. So what I hope is that not only can the money keep flowing back and forth with Kiva, that's a very positive and meaningful thing, but I hope that Kiva can blur those lines, like I said, between the traditional kind of rich and poor categories that we're taught to see in the world, this false dichotomy of us and them, have and have not. I hope that Kiva can blur those lines, because as that happens, I think we can feel free to interact in a way that's more open and more just and more creative, to engage with each other and to help each other. Imagine how you feel when you see somebody on the street who is begging and you're about to approach them. Imagine how you feel. And then imagine the difference when you might see somebody who has a story of entrepreneurship and hard work, who wants to tell you about their business. Maybe they're smiling and they want to talk to you about what they've done. Imagine if you're speaking to somebody who's growing things and making them flourish. Somebody who's using their talents to do something productive. Somebody who's built their own business from scratch. Someone who is surrounded by abundance, not scarcity, who's in fact creating abundance. Somebody with full hands, with something to offer, not empty hands, asking for you to give them something. Imagine if you could hear a story that you didn't expect of somebody who wakes up every day and works very, very hard to make their life better. These stories can really change the way that we think about each other. And if we can catalyze a supportive community to come around these individuals and to participate in their story by lending a little bit of money, I think that can change the way we believe in each other and each other's potential. Now, for me, Kiva is just the beginning, and as I look forward to what is next, it's been helpful to reflect on the things I've learned so far. The first one is, as I mentioned, entrepreneurship was a new idea to me. Kiva borrowers, as I interviewed them and got to know them over the last few years, have taught me what entrepreneurship is. And I think at its core, it's deciding that you want your life to be better, you see an opportunity, and you decide what you're going to do to try to seize that. In short, it's deciding that tomorrow can be better than today and going after that. Second thing that I've learned is that loans are a very interesting tool for connectivity. So they're not a donation, yeah, maybe it doesn't sound that much different. But in fact, when you give something to someone and they say thanks and let you know how things go, that's one thing. When you lend them money and they slowly pay you back over time, you have this excuse to have an ongoing dialogue. This continued attention, this ongoing attention is a really big deal to build different kinds of relationships among us. And then third, from what I have heard from the entrepreneurs I've gotten to know, when all else is equal, given the option to have just money to do what you need to do, or money plus the support and encouragement of a global community, people choose the community plus the money. That's a much more meaningful combination, a more powerful combination. So with that in mind, this particular insight has kind of led to the things that I'm working on now. I see entrepreneurs everywhere now that I'm tuned into this. And one thing that I've seen is there are a lot of supportive communities that already exist in the world. With social networks, it's an amazing way growing the number of people that we all have around us in our own supportive communities rapidly. And so as I've been thinking about this, I've been wondering, how can we engage these supportive communities to catalyze even more entrepreneurial ideas and to catalyze all of us to make tomorrow better than today, right? As I've researched kind of what's going on in the United States, a few interesting little insights have come up. So one is that, of course, as we all might expect, many small businesses in the US and all over the world still need money to grow and to do more of what they want to do, or they might need money during a hard month. But there's always a need for resources close by. Another thing is, it turns out those resources don't usually come from the places you might expect. Banks, venture capitalists, other organizations and support structures, they come from friends and family. Some statistics say 85% or more of funding for small businesses comes from friends and family. That's around $130 billion a year. It's a lot. And third, so as people are doing this friends and family fundraising process, it's very awkward. People don't know exactly what to ask for, how to ask, what to promise in return, even though they have the best of intentions and want to thank those people that are supporting them. So to harness the power of these supportive communities in a new way and to allow entrepreneurs to decide for themselves exactly what that financial exchange should look like, exactly what fits them and the people around them. This week, actually, we're quietly doing a launch of ProFounder, which is a crowdfunding platform for small businesses to raise what they need through investments from their friends and family. And it's investments, not donations, not loans, but investments that have a dynamic return. So the mapping of participating in the story, it actually flows with the up and down. So in short, it's a do-it-yourself tool for small businesses to raise these funds. And what you can do is go onto the site, create a profile, create investment terms in a really easy way. We make it really, really simple for me as well as anyone else who wants to use the site. And we allow entrepreneurs to share a percentage of their revenues. They can raise up to $2 million from an unlimited number of unaccredited, unsophisticated investors, everyday people, heaven forbid. And then they can share those returns over time, again, whatever terms they set. As investors choose to become involved based on those terms, they can either take their rewards back as cash, or they can decide in advance to give those returns away to a nonprofit. So they can be a cash or a cause investor. It's my hope that this kind of tool can show anybody who has an idea a path to go do what they want to do in the world and to gather the people around them that they already have, the people that know them best and that love them and want to support them, to gather them to make this happen. So that's what I'm working on now. And to close, I just want to say, look, these are tools. Right now, ProFounder's right at the beginning, and it's very palpable. It's very clear to me that it's just a vessel. It's just a tool. What we need are for people to care, to actually go use it, just like they've cared enough to use Kiva to make those connections. But the good news is, I don't think I need to stand here and convince you to care. I'm not even going to try. I don't think, even though we often hear the ethical and moral reasons, the religious reasons, here's why caring and giving will make you happier, I don't think we need to be convinced of that. I think we know. In fact, I think we know so much, and that it's such a reality that we care so deeply, that in fact what usually stops us is that we're afraid to try and to mess up, because we care so very much about helping each other and being meaningful in each other's lives. So what I think I can do today, the best thing I can give you, I've given you my story, which is the best I can do. And I think I can remind us that we do care. I think we all already know that. And I think we know that love is resilient enough for us to get out there and try. Just a sec. Thanks. Thanks. For me, the best way to be inspired to try is to stop and to listen to someone else's story. And I'm grateful that I've gotten to do that here at TED. And I'm grateful that whenever I do that, guaranteed, I am inspired. I am inspired by the person that I'm listening to, and I believe more and more every time I listen in that person's potential to do great things in the world and in my own potential to maybe help. And that, forget the tools, forget the moving around of resources, that stuff's easy. Believing in each other, really being sure when push comes to shove that each one of us can do amazing things in the world, that is what can make our stories into love stories and our collective story into one that continually perpetuates hope and good things for all of us. So that, this belief in each other, knowing that without a doubt, and practicing that every day in whatever you do, that's what I believe will change the world and make tomorrow better than today. Thank you.
La labor de Kiva y de Jessica Yagley es conocida y alabada mundialmente. A día de hoy han concedido más de 700 millones en préstamos a 1,6 millones de pequeños empresarios en 86 países. Hasta aquí la videoclase dentro del programa Erasmus Plus sobre los microcréditos.